Since time immemorial, knowledge having to do with metaphysics and spirituality was considered to be in large part a secret. When it came to the transmission of this knowledge, it was ultimately divided into two parts. On one hand, you had the exoteric knowledge that was available to all, and in the other, you had the esoteric knowledge that was only available to the initiated, in which an individual went through a system of initiation. And the more they progressed within the initiation system, the more metaphysical knowledge and secrets became available to them. And ultimately these systems of initiation gave rise to what is currently known as the mystery religions. The mystery religions were an esoteric form of worship that transmitted metaphysical and spiritual truths through the use of mythology, and involved the use of secrecy in regards to its initiation and ritual practices, which was not to be revealed to outsiders. When you study and analyze of all the ancient mystery religions, whether they be the mysteries of Adonis, the mysteries of Isis and Osiris, the Eleusinian mysteries, the mysteries of Tammuz, and etc., there are two things that they all have in common. One, all of these ancient mystery religions are all based around fertility deities, and two, the mythology surrounding these deities all contain the central theme of death and resurrection. In antiquity, man did all sorts of rites and rituals for various reasons, and in many cases these rituals coincided with certain astrological and seasonal times of the year. But out of all the ancient rites and rituals that man did, the most important and ancient of all were the fertility rites. In ancient times, the acquisition of food was a much more serious matter than it is today. It was a literal matter of life and death. In those days, if you failed to have a good harvest, then there was a good possibility that coming winter time, many people could starve to death. And because man in those days had a much closer relationship to nature than we do today, in an attempt to manipulate natural phenomena, humans did certain rites and rituals in order to ensure that they not only continue to have a good harvest in the subsequent year, but also as a way to show their gratitude and respect for the gods, the unseen spirits, and the various intelligences they believed were attributed or responsible for the creation and regeneration of the food and crops that they so desperately needed for their own survival and existence. Now, what was not readily understood by the masses is that there was a much deeper meaning to these rites and rituals. On an exoteric level, it alludes to the yearly renewal of the earth, but on an esoteric level, it was one of initiation and spiritual evolution. So, in other words, that the death of the sun, or the earth, which was represented in these myths by fertility deities, and their subsequent descent and journey into the underworld during the winter, and their later resurrection in the spring, was analogous to the spiritual evolution of man, where the initiate went through a symbolic death in order to be later resurrected as a higher and more spiritual being. It was about overcoming the animal or lower self to embrace the divine and eternal higher self within, and to transmutate the mind from a state of ignorance to a state of enlightenment. So, in other words, the alchemical axiom of turning lead into gold is actually one of mental transmutation. Now, the process in which the initiate underwent symbolic death involved the death of the ego, and this state of ego dissolution was done either through apparatuses that created sensory deprivation, through the use of trance-like or meditative techniques, or through the use of hallucinogens or psychedelics that created out-of-body experiences or other altered states of consciousness. The reason why initiates went through a process of ego dissolution is that there was a prevalent belief within the ancient mysteries that reason alone was limited or insufficient in regards to understanding certain aspects of our reality, and that those aspects could only be truly understood through direct experience. So by the initiate going through the process of ego dissolution, they was able to ascertain those spiritual truths for themselves. Also, another important thing to note is that these mysteries and their rites was not just about the enlightenment of man, but was also about the development of a person's moral character. There was a certain level of moral conduct that was expected of the initiates. So not only did the initiate's mind had to be purifying, but also their heart as well, And the reason why is because according to the mysteries, wisdom had to be balanced by compassion. The system had to make sure that the information that was being given to the initiates was not going to be misused or revealed to an outsider, which could potentially cause harm to themselves or others. One thing to note is that in certain mystery religions, some of the information that was revealed to the initiates was of a scientific or chemical nature, which could have been very destructive in the wrong hands. And this also included knowledge in regards to coming into contact with certain entities. This is why it was important for these religions to build up an individual's moral character. Compassion was just as important as wisdom as far as they was concerned. And as an example of this, you can definitely see these elements being implemented within Freemasonry, where the Masonic degree system not only focuses on developing a Mason's knowledge, but also a Mason's moral virtues. In conclusion, all of the ancient mystery religions that we know today can be seen as iterations of the same archetypal form of initiation that goes back thousands of years, and the metaphysical and spiritual truths contained within them ultimately served as the foundation for not only the Abrahamic religions, but also many of the ancient metaphysical philosophies and those that exist today.